Thanks very much for the hospitality. It's always good to be in New York. Unfortunately, my Boston Red Sox were not greeted as warmly last night, but we'll be back. My name's Michael Kolowich. I'm CEO and founder of a company called KnowledgeVision. We're the creators of Knovio. We're a sponsor here at Streaming Media East, and I'd like to encourage you to come by and see us afterwards. I cut my teeth as a TV news reporter in Boston, in software as a senior executive at Lotus, back when it was actually a larger software company than Microsoft, believe it or not. In publishing as founding publisher of PC Computing Magazine, in online content as founder of ZDNet, and in production as owner of a video production studio called Diginovations back in Boston. I'd like to talk today about rethinking an approach to live multimedia webcasting and some of the opportunities to do so that are offered by the changes in live video streaming standards that we're going through right now. And in particular, one such opportunity, something that we call NeverLate as kind of an illustration. Here's what I'd like to cover in the next 20 minutes or so. I'd like to talk about what I've experienced as right and wrong about live multimedia webcasting today. I'll use that as the basis for a manifesto for fixing it. I'll show you what I think is a first big step towards fulfilling that manifesto. And I will extend an invitation for you to drop by and see a demonstration of more. At the end of the presentation, we'll draw for a fully managed webcast, multimedia webcast up to a day on Knovio Live, which you'll meet along the way today. So, stay tuned for that. And by the way, when I talk about multimedia live casting today, I'm talking about services, like this that transmit synchronized video, images, and other information. Like synchronized dynamic footnotes and things like that. Multimedia experiences that are built around a live video stream. We like to think of this as kind of thinking outside the 16:9 box and surrounding a video stream with ancillary information and interactives and the like. Think conferences and events like this, or global town meetings, virtual news conferences, public hearings, investor briefings, virtual IPO roadshows, anywhere that you've got live content that has experts or executives illustrating what they know with slides or images and doing it live. But I'd like to begin with a story. Meet my friend Dan. I learned a lot about software from Dan, the most important of which was that many of the best software products come from the pain of personal experience. You see, Dan was a year ahead of me in a graduate business program back in Boston. It was a school that taught business entirely through the case method, putting its students through lots and lots of business cases over the course of a couple of years. Now, both of us experienced the tedium of what we called running the numbers, right, on those cases, which looked a whole lot like this, pages and pages of manual entries. And Dan had the insight to do something about it, and when he saw Steve Jobs' Apple II computer come out, he literally put two and two together, and VisiCalc was born, first kind of so-called killer app. Dan Bricklin's company, Software Arts, was almost single-handedly responsible for driving the early success of Apple's new computer, yet it was an application inspired almost completely from pain. Of course, you probably know the rest of the story. The computing platform of choice for business became not the Apple II, but rather the IBM PC. VisiCalc was easily eclipsed by Lotus, which was my company, and a new spreadsheet called 123. And then, in 1985, we bought Dan's company, only to be eclipsed by Microsoft and Excel. And we tried gamely to compete, but pivoted to a product that I worked on called Notes. We sold it out to IBM, and it was relegated to software history. But that really leads me to the second thing I learned from my friend Dan. which was, in addition to the fact that, most great software products come from pain, it is that, changes in the underlying platform give opportunities for reinvention or rethinking whole products, which is where I think we are right now in multimedia live casting. It may not sound like that big a deal, but I believe that the migration from the RTMP streaming protocol, the real-time messaging protocol developed by Macromedia for streaming video largely with Flash, to Flash-free protocols like HLS and MPEG-Dash have really created the opportunity to rethink and reinvent multimedia live streaming, freed from the constraints of the RTMP protocol. Why is that so? Well, first of all, HLS and MPEG-Dash act less like a continuous kind of media stream and more like collections of short segments. Typically, 10 seconds in the case of HLS, 2 to 4 seconds in the case of MPEG-Dash. And this enables a more random access approach to dipping into a live stream, which in turn opens up a whole plethora of new functionality to applications like multimedia live streaming. The economics, too, turn out to be radically less expensive. As you can see from how new services like Amazon's AWS Media Live services, which was introduced in January, have dropped the prices of streaming video origination from, in some cases, hundreds of dollars an hour to really, kind of low single digits per hour, more than 90%. But at the same time, it offers some unique technical challenges that need to be solved too. Largely, these relate to the variable latency that exists in the network. So sometimes you see video being received by somebody 10 seconds later, in some cases a minute, sometimes even 2 minutes later. And so synchronizing other things to it becomes a really difficult and challenging problem. And you see some people here addressing that by kind of trying to reduce the latency in the network. But there are also other ways to take a look at this. So, following my friend Dan's model, where has the pain been in traditional multimedia live casting? Well, first is universal access, particularly mobile access. A whole lot of multimedia streaming was until recently frozen out of Apple devices simply because they didn't support Flash. Sometimes downloadable apps were required in order to show video along with other interactive elements, and so on. So second is provisioning and setup. To be frank, video webcasts have been really complicated to set up and run. Third, a lot of platforms support only static slides and not animations. Fourth, the typical webcasting platform doesn't support late changes. How many times have you come in with late, somebody come in with, okay, I have all these new substitute slides, and I said, no, we can't make any changes. Some webcasting services require that your slides be locked and loaded the night before. Fifth, late arriving viewers are out of luck. They haven't had a choice up to now to go back in the stream and watch from the start. They're stuck with kind of trying to figure it out from going in the middle. Sixth, the webcast viewers are often busy people. They get interrupted. They miss stuff. Seventh, the layout, and therefore things like the relative size of video and images has typically been fixed. Sometimes it's 50-50, side by side. Sometimes it's like the video is a little thumbnail, picture in picture or whatever. This doesn't take into account the fact that as you're going through a multimedia webcast, sometimes the attention should be on the images, and sometimes those are very detailed images. Sometimes the attention should be on the speaker, which leads us to general layout flexibility. A fixed layout doesn't always fit the use case of a webcast. And here's another one. How often have you heard that the archived version of the live webcast will be posted tomorrow? It shouldn't take that long. And then, finally, the expense. I talked about that earlier. Simply speaking, running a video webcast shouldn't be as expensive as it is. So these pain points have led to what I call a manifesto for next-generation live casting that follows the pain points. So, mobile access to the full multimedia experience should be as easy as viewing on the desktop in a browser with no downloadable app. It should be relatively easy to set up and run, including the video. It should support the full range of presentation animations, should take the stress out of late changes to the slide deck. And here's a big one. Viewers, when they arrive late, should never miss out on material. They should be given the option to go back to the beginning, or view it in progress, or anywhere in between. So I've often just arrived at a webcast and say, oh gosh, I missed the first 12 minutes here. I'll wait for the on-demand version, and then I never get around to it, right? Hand in hand with this is that the experience should be DVR-like, pause, instant replay if you missed and wanted to review a point, able to jump around. And as you do, everything should stay in sync, okay? All the slides, all the footnotes, all that stuff should stay in sync. That means that the structure of the program, essentially the agenda, should be exposed and visible and navigable. Viewers should be able to jump back to specific sections of the material during the webcast. A live cast should not necessarily be a couch potato experience. It should be an opportunity to engage. Interactive features like downloadable handouts, reference notes, and links, tell me more links, allowing you to kind of pause and kind of get an explanation or see the source of a chart that's being displayed, along with polls and quiz questions, et cetera, should all be supported. The online version should instantly be available, no overnight delays. It should be there and available right away. And then give me analytics that are deep, viewer-specific, and real-time. Show me who's here, who's been here and left, how each viewer engaged with the material. I should not only be able to assess how my, from my analytics, how my content performed in general, but I should be able to identify which viewers engaged and which ones didn't. That's incredibly important in everywhere from kind of marketing applications to things like compliance applications and training applications. So here's a picture of how our team has been working on this, address this manifesto from the viewer side on the Knovio Live platform that debuted this week here at Streaming Media East. This isn't meant as a product demo, so I won't go through it in detail. But a good example of our approach is what we call NeverLate. A viewer who arrives 10 minutes late can join in progress or watch from the beginning. Follow along topics populate as the live cast goes along, so that somebody who wants to go back and review the section on the market or the section on explaining this technology can go back and click on that and review specific topics, even though it's part of a live webcast. Here's a look at the webcast from a producer's side as well. It's designed to streamline setup, to accommodate last-minute changes, to tie the time clock in your encoder to the time clock of kind of the slide sync methodology, so that you can keep the visuals and the interactive elements in sync with the video. And even there's a slider that will adjust the relative size of the video and slides at different parts of the presentation. Because sometimes, some visuals really are an eye chart, and you really want to focus on it and make that big. But sometimes you want to focus on the video. So Here's a real-life example of what this looks like. This is a keynote from the all-day multimedia live cast of IDC's Directions Conference, their major technology conference last month on the Knovio platform. This is actually just a photograph of what the setup looked like from the back of the room. So you see the presenter, there at the front of the room, with a big audience. In this case, the video is being live switched and encoded from a Wirecast instance down here, and sent up into a multi-bit rate stream. In this case, we were using Brightcove Live. And on the left, you see the Knovio control panel running in a laptop browser that is handling the synchronization. And then, once again, everybody had the availability of NeverLate. So, no matter what the latency was in the network or individual devices, no matter what, whether somebody had paused to take a phone call and resumed the video, or even arrived 10 minutes late, everything was in sync. The next big step in fulfilling that manifesto is to offer webcam origination as an option. Setting up and running a full multimedia interactive webcast from your webcam should be as easy and commonplace as starting a Facebook Live broadcast, but with all the interactive elements and analytics that business video applications require. In working on this manifesto, well, the guy on the right is my co-founder at KnowledgeVision, Alex Kieft. He is the son-in-law of my friend Dan. And we're showing off what we hope to be the first of a whole string of patents reflecting webcasting innovations enabled by the evolution of that underlying technology infrastructure. So I'd like to invite you to come see some of the things that we're working on in the booth, kind of right in the center of the expo area, and to give your feedback and answer any questions that you have. I'd be happy to take any questions you have now. I think we have 2 or 3 minutes, right?
We do. Any questions? Okay, if there aren't any questions, then the giveaway from Knovio is one live streaming event. There it is. And the winner is Nathaniel Behrens. Is Nathaniel in the room? Nathaniel, come on up and talk to Michael. He'll give you all the information. Thanks, everyone. The next session in here is after lunch at 1:45.
Great. Thanks very much.